Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Our panelists today from ArisGlobal, Complion, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Today's webinar discussion on clinical site audit readiness and TMF health. I'm your host, Matt Harrington, with ArisGlobal. Our agenda today, we'll go through some quick introductions and then get right into our first survey question for the audience, followed by panel discussion on challenges in getting audit ready, and also challenges in running master trials, as well as new opportunities for clinical researchers. And then pivot again into more audience participation with another question. And again, thank you in advance for your participation. Anytime you want to ask a question during the session, please just click the Q&A button, and we'll get to them as we go or at the end. Our panelists today, first of all, Sondra Page, Associate Vice President of Clinical and Regulatory Product Management at ArisGlobal. Next, Rick Arlow, CEO of Complion, the leading provider of electronic investigator site file systems to high-performing sites, CROs, and sponsors. Finally, Len Rosenberg, Head of Clinical Operations for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, largest nonprofit dedicated to blood cancer cures. Good to have you all here. Thank you. All right, for us, ArisGlobal, if you haven't heard of us, we are a major player in cloud software solutions for life sciences. We got our start in safety about 30 years ago and have been working in clinical for over a decade. We're a little less well-known in clinical, but today, the company has more than 300 customers across the life sciences. We're based in the US, and we are growing fast. Okay, so we will get right into that first audience survey question. And we are building here on a survey conducted at the EXL Clinical Quality Oversight Forum 2 years ago. The question, do you have site regulatory issues? And our responses are either yes or maybe. So keeping it real simple, we wanted to push that out to you, and hoping you had some responses to give on that. Just give it a few seconds here. Okay. Well, thank you. Oh. No responses as of yet. Okay. All right. So, well, we can report that in the EXL survey report, their responses, 56% said yes, that they know they have site regulatory issues. And then 44% said maybe they have site regulatory issues, so not high degree of confidence there, only feel good about part of it. And the issue is, as you probably know, that most site audit results are not a good thing. They result in delays in a time of closeout, data lock, or submission time. Also increased costs due to more site visits, change orders, higher number of audit findings, and the resulting work that has to happen for updating SOPs, getting CAPAs done, and doing that site staff training. So that a couple of the problem areas that arise. And I wanted to ask Rick about how Complion can help with the solution in those problem areas.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Awesome. So, yeah, I think today, as we've seen with this survey result and out there, as many sponsors and CROs have had challenges really with their sites being audit ready with all of the regulatory and administrative documents that need to exist, right? That they need to manage, that you're responsible for monitoring. And really what you know, that it's an important problem because it can lead to real study delays and study costs. So the opportunities here by being able to, leverage, EISF, right, both to obviously be able to get the documents to share, to work with your sites, but also what can that really mean by being able to leverage automation and intelligence is really the opportunity to reduce those delays and costs, to identify proactively not just what the documents are, but what are the key missing requirements that are here. If there was new protocol amendments, has everyone been trained and signed off on that? And leveraging technology that can automate those components and provide you with that insight to what's missing and still needs to be done. Separately as well, too, right? Being able to pinpoint the specific gaps, right? What are either the process level pieces and or the specific, staff members, CRAs, CROs, sites that may have the specific challenges that you want to be able to address and to be able to address those, directly, right? And one of the things here we've seen as well is there's obviously a lot of quality assurance and process improvement that is continuously going into this, right? We've provided a new set of key tabs, and in this study, we've identified what we think those key documents should be for the ISF. We're training our monitors now to make sure that they're able to effectively identify this information, right? But to step back, to be able to help provide a better way to actually leverage technology to take those learnings and put them into the technology here directly, right? To actually pinpoint the specific documents that are required, training, credentialing, and other components, so that it's not relying on staff members to have to remember how to find this information or how to interpret what those requirements are for each individual site. But by being able to leverage that information, here directly, right? Some of the opportunities here that we've seen with recent inspections here of sites here on the platform has been that the sites have been able to identify things like missing training and sign-off requirements by the version, by the specific staff members, since each visit, right? And so that way you're ensuring that is up to date, being able to file documents with the right information to really easily find what you need to as an inspector, as a CRA, as a couple examples here specifically.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rick. And then for the panel in general, can you tell us what is preventing clinical sites from becoming audit ready, in your opinion? Len, could you weigh in on that one?
Sure. So when you think about the priorities at a site, and we're living this with our blood cancer clinical trials and master trials, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, they seem to be scrambling. And they get a priority list from not only one sponsor like us, but many sponsors. And what typically happens is they put out the fires. And when you think about the fact that the likelihood of an audit would happen relative to getting hounded for, queries and startup documents and everything else that's going on, the sites typically default to, just human nature, which is let's put out the fires. And so when you move down the cascade of running a clinical trial, you all of a sudden get to a point where you're saying, oh my God, we're a year in, where are these documents? What do I have to refresh? Or you're at the end, or you're going to have a surprise audit somewhere along the way. They just never seem to focus on that. And as a sponsor, we're always concerned about it, right? Because we want to be audit ready. We want to be in compliance. And we accept the trade-offs because we have no other solution. So we've adapted, Complion as that solution. So we automate a lot of the regulatory and clinical trial document flow because it's in the background anyway. So we like to make it more friendly for the sites to stay compliant. And obviously, people will know that in the world of a pandemic where they have even less resources, it becomes more of an issue. So those are my initial thoughts, Matt.
Okay, Thanks, Len. Sondra, can you respond? Because the one thing that was interesting, 44% said maybe they're in compliance. How is it so hard to know if you are inspection ready?
Well, I think Rick already hit on a lot of these points, really. It's a moving target. So there's a set of known documents and known milestones for activating a site and getting them up and ready to start enrolling. But as the study design changes and as the environment changes, different things happen that then need more documents or documents expire. And it's really an ongoing grooming, as both Rick and Len are talking to. So having the systems that understand all of those trigger points and have automated this connection between real-world events. It could be quality findings, as Rick was speaking to, and you want to retrain a site, or you want to revisit some of the previous training materials and update that. There's so many things that really happen that come back to this notion of documentation that has to be in your regulatory binders or in your eTMF as a sponsor, that it is a constantly moving target. And the CRAs that Len and Rick are speaking to really spend a lot of time without this automation trying to manually chase this down. So it's a very complex set of interplays that everybody's hitting upon, and these systems and these kind of automated processes can help reduce that effort and ensure better compliance.
Okay, thank you. So Len, you had touched on something briefly, which was the master trials. Now, for those who aren't familiar, master trials use a master protocol, a single infrastructure and trial design to simultaneously evaluate multiple drugs and or disease populations in multiple sub-studies. A lot of complexity, but allowing for more efficiency and accelerated development. Len, so I know you head up the Beat AML master trial. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience in terms of being compliance ready and what the opportunities, challenges are there?
Sure. So as Matt mentioned, we have a master screening protocol, and then once a patient qualifies for, in this particular case, a frontline AML patient, we use genomics and make that treatment decision centrally and then assign them studies. So these sub-studies, we had as many as 10 of them open at the same time. And so when you think about it from the site perspective, because they all have to run, 10 plus the master, keeping the documents organized, right, and figuring out when amendments happen and how to process that really gets complicated, because you have to partition all of these relative to the individual sponsors, but yet you're all operating under one umbrella protocol. So it gets to the point where you have to figure out how to go ahead and intake these documents, parse them to allow everyone to see them or only certain sponsors to see them. And then think about it at the site level when you have ongoing amendments. And these amendments are not because we wrote crappy protocols. They're just early stage oncology programs where you find out more information and you have to make changes based on cohort expansions or safety or any of those other things. And then you have staff that change, right? Because our programs go on for years and years. We're in year 5. So it's certainly not likely that everyone that started is actually going to continue, whether it's at the CRO level or whether it's at the sponsor level or at the site level. So you keep adding all of these complexities into an environment that isn't just one study. And then how do you keep that top of mind? In conventional ways with CROs, you don't really have a good look into what's going on, so you're highly dependent on them keeping up. That's not a good place to be if you're a sponsor. You need visibility, not only into the CRO operations, but into the site operations. And if you don't have that, it yet adds another piece of complexity into the overall program. So let me stop there, because I think you understand the complexities now even more in these types of newer study designs that are going to be in vogue. And we need to figure out a way to map this and organize it and automate it so that all the users have a chance to, look at this and become more efficient and track what's going on, Matt.
Thanks, Len. It sounds like there's a bit of a tension going on there, because on the one hand, you need to have some partitioning, as you mentioned, but then also you want to have the visibility for people who are involved. So I imagine that can get that can get it challenging. So thanks for that. All right. Next, we will turn to the audience again and ask you to give your opinions and your experience about what is the largest source of regulatory findings. Is it data integrity or essential documents? Quality systems? Those are your three options, and we will. Our survey did not come up there, so my apologies. But we do have data on this one as well. For the past 10 years, the UK Health Authority, we did collect some data actually on this question. So let me just back up a slide here. This question, we collected some data on our own LinkedIn site, and actually we found that about a little over 60% said data integrity was the largest source of regulatory findings, and about 20% essential documents, and another 20% on quality systems. Actually, we had included an other response, which had about 5%. So these other two, essential documents and quality systems, were less than 20. But far and away, data integrity was way out in front as people are concerned about and thinking that's the largest source of regulatory findings, which to me makes a lot of sense because data integrity is a big catch-all. But actually what's been happening is that there is a regulatory authority that focuses on this, of course, and tracks it. So the UK Health Authority, MHRA, for the past 10 years, has been publishing results of its good clinical practices inspection findings. And shown on the top here of this chart, since 2012, the percentage of inspection findings with at least one critical finding for commercial sponsors has gone from 4% in 2012. And, it was trending negative and meaning more and more findings over the years up until 2018. And then positive sign in 2018, findings decreased, but then shot back up again to 50% in 2019. So, a little concerning there. But, if you said essential documents are the #1 source of major findings, then you're right. Apologies for not having that survey up, but in our LinkedIn survey, we found less than 20% said essential documents are the #1 source. But in fact, what's happening is that they're creating a lot of issues. And so, data quality, data integrity and quality systems are creating issues, but not as much as essential documents. And so this is I wanted to segue here into the ArisGlobal electronic trial master file system. And this helps keep those essential documents in order. It creates value in clinical research by helping you streamline inspections, making sure you're audit ready, and built in the cloud on AWS, the system future-proofs compliance, saving time and effort. Now, one of the ways it does this is through better collaboration, real-time file sharing. That means you get timely updates, more complete documents. Don't have to go back 6 months or more, try to recreate the story of the study and produce a compliant TMF. LifeSphere eTMF is built on an open standard called the eTMF Exchange Mechanism Standard. And this means any CRO, any clinical site or sponsor that uses this open standard can connect with LifeSphere eTMF and connect with each other. And that means they're all on the same page at the same time. So increasing that collaboration. Okay, now here's our survey, out of order, my apologies. But we're gonna have to skip this because I've already given away let the cat out of the bag on that one. But I can turn back to the panel now. and just ask you, tell me, if you could, how can sponsors and CROs get started in making improvements in order to get themselves up to speed in better audit readiness? So, Sondra, if I could ask you that question within the perspective of eTMF, I know with your background there, you might have some interesting comments.
Yeah, I think it's actually two-handed these days. So having a really good comprehensive eTMF solution like you were describing with LifeSphere eTMF, you really also need that connected clinical trial management system, the CTMS as well. A lot of those triggers that we were talking about and the milestones that you're trying to manage their relationship to the documents, that data is going to flow from your CTMS and really drive that automation in your eTMF. So in the LifeSphere platform, we do offer that unification, as you mentioned too, and I think this is really important. If you think back to the complexities Len was describing with multiple sponsors across the 10 different sub-studies within the master protocol, all of those sponsors each have potentially different systems of record, right, with different vendors. So that agnostic interoperability that you spoke about becomes really critical with these modern study designs and really this ecosystem that we're building that's more and more reliant on technologies and automations to help sponsors, CROs, and sites more effectively manage and prepare all of this. So I personally, and obviously I'm biased, but the LifeSphere eTMF and CTMS and their interoperability, I think, are key to really helping reduce effort overall and improve quality and compliance. Len or Rick?
Okay. Yeah. Rick, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think what many sponsors and CROs are seeing today, and I think is, looking back at some of the data points here we've seen in stories, they've started a lot of studies over the last year and are getting to close out, and even more so than usual, right? There are a whole bunch of additional weeks and unanticipated study costs, visits, audits to ensure, as Len was talking about, that you can identify that the site is in compliance and close out and get to your submission, right? And so at the end of the day, being able to have purpose-built technology that enables you to really be able to ensure and automate and have intelligence and visibility into the level of site compliance is critical, right? Especially with many amendments and site staff, and being able to not just find the key documents you need, but be able to ensure that you meet the most complex requirements so that your sites are in compliance in a proactive manner. And that's really what we do, what we strive to do more and more every day here with Complion on the EISF side. So that's my quick overview.
Okay, Len, so I know this question asks about sponsors and CROs, but they need to consider what's going on from the site's perspective, and when they're getting ready to try to make improvements, what do they need to keep top of mind in terms of effect on sites?
I think sites should actually flip it around, and they should basically say, here are the documents. You come into our environment and pull out what you need. Because essentially at that point, the typical ones that you ask for are always available. And it's up to us to then parse them out relative, especially in a master trial, which it's the same PI across all of these sub-studies, right? It's so much easier for them to say, and this could be, we have an eReg system, or we're going to use an EISF. But the way in which we do it with the sites, because of the burden that we mentioned earlier, is to basically say, take a hybrid approach, but move the documents into an organized repository that then automates the flow relative to where the landing spot is. And we define what that landing spot is. Clearly, you have an eTMF, and there are others that are out there. And again, we're agnostic to that in the sense that we have to define that flow, and then they have to be there. And then we have to have visibility into that process from the EISF, CTMS, and the TMF, all of that. And what we've done is taken it one step further, and that we've selected out key information from all of these systems, and we put them into a data lake and then visualize them at a higher level using SAMA technologies to give us a master trial genomic-based digital dashboard. So if you're thinking about this from a sponsor perspective, take these earlier suggestions about making it very easy on the site, and if they have their existing system, figure out a way to use it. But put it into an organized system where you actually have that structure, have the kind of that, in our case, the parent-child relationship built into the architecture already, so you're not scrambling to figure out and retrofit your systems into something that you didn't build from the outset. All of those things happen, but if you make it easy on the site and you make it visible to the sponsor, you're going to be doing pretty well in terms of managing complex studies, let alone the easy studies that probably occupy 80% of what's going on out there as well. I'll turn it back to you, Matt.
Okay, great, Len. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So next, wanted to see what we had from our audience in terms of questions. And let's see here. This one is asking about training and sign-off. Rick, can you talk about how Complion handles tasks like that?
Yeah, definitely. So first and foremost, right, there's the ability to make a really simple, right, easy, single interface for the investigators and other, site staff to go to. They can use their existing, mobile phones, whatever device they have, to be able to easily go in, log in, sign off on what they need. And I think that's an initial key piece, right, in terms of the e-signature and ensuring compliance and making that as easy as possible, right? To go further, though, another step, ultimately to ensure to actually be able to address, right, those real issues that can be coming up on an inspection, on a closeout. It's critical to be able to manage that broader task in terms of training, right? Since my last visit with this site, we've had one new amendment. We've had these specific staff members come in and out of study. And so how do we make sure that everyone has actually been trained, right? And have the ability to track down to that level the specific missing training requirements by staff and by amendment, right? And going even further to some of the complexities, as Len was talking about, right, in terms of if you have multiple cohorts, we may have multiple informed consent forms that people need to be trained on. We may have multiple, key versions here that exist, and further being able to enable those sites to have the access in a version-controlled manner, so they're just getting the most current information from their phone, from their device, that they can easily search for without needing to know it's in this subfolder and area, right? And using technology to actually automate those specific processes, right? Instead of relying on, a CRA or someone on the sponsor side or the site side to actually go in and manually name this thing, control access, follow up on those components, right? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned automation. Sondra, can you comment a little bit about how LifeSphere eTMF uses automation and intelligence to streamline operations?
Yeah, there's low-level automation, kind of like triggers and the relationships between the data that we were talking about before. We're also moving into more advanced automation areas. So our initial proof of concept for a self-filing eTMF in our last release, we made production ready. The system actually auto-identifies FDA 1572 forms. So as you bring those documents into the repository, the system says, I know that document type, I know the classification, it uses natural language processing to read the data out of the form. So whether it was scanned or entered electronically, it's able to process the study country, and site information so that it can accurately file it to the right trial master file at the right location. That's just really our first step. The team is actively working in the background now to add the machine learning components, because not all of our documents are industry standard forms. A lot of them are company-specific templates, or they vary by study or therapeutic area. And the machine learning element that we're adding will really get us to 97 to 99% detection of all your documents and doc types. So eliminating that kind of heavy lifting that your teams do today in manually identifying documents across hundreds to thousands of potential document types, and really allowing them to focus on more quality add pieces in the system. So we're really excited about that progress, and our customers have been helping to feed into that evolution, Matt.
Oh, great. Thanks, Sondra. Thanks. Okay, so we're about out of time. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I want to thank my panelists, Sondra, Rick, Len. Appreciate it very much. If anybody would like to get a copy of the slides today, please let me know. Send me an email. My address is right there. And thanks again, and have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.